at Product Review Cars, I've tested nearly every type of Kia Sorento you can buy, but I thought it was time to go ahead and check out their latest offering. This is the Hybrid. So it's a way to save fuel while still having 7 seats, but it's the type of hybrid that you don't have to plug in. So it may be appealing to people who don't ever want to see their car attached to a socket. Now, it is less expensive than the plug-in hybrid, but it does have less dedicated EV range. So if you like the idea of commuting just on electric power, that's what the plug-in hybrid's for. But this is really just for saving fuel and giving you a lot more range per tank of fuel. And so to show you what's new, I'm going to walk around the outside features, the inside features, and of course, take it for a drive to let you know if this is worth checking out and taking it for a test drive and possibly even buying. Now that out of the way, my name's Cameron. This is Product Review Cars. Let's get into it. Now, pricing for this car starts off in the mid $60,000 range for this front wheel drive model. So yes, it is a little bit more affordable compared to the dedicated plug-in hybrid that sits above this, but it is a tad more expensive than the diesel version. This is in the GT line trim, so we pretty much have every option fitted to this car, and it's in its best looking trim as well. So starting from the front, you can see these nice big daytime running lights and LED headlights. They just look fantastic, and I really like how bright they are. I also like the blacked out grille. The new Kia logo looks great here. The first Sorento I reviewed didn't have that, so it's nice to see that here. And I just like the look of this car. It's very sort of subtle and muscular, especially with how the bonnet's designed here, but I also like the little venting along the side as well. It's a smart looking vehicle from the front. Now, there was a small hint up front to indicate this is a EV, but there are no clues along the side that this is any different from any other Kia Sorento on the road. We have 19-inch alloy wheels, and I do like the silver accenting along the bottom, but I'm not a big fan of this little trim piece here. It just seems a little unnecessary. And then along the side, it just looks like a normal Kia Sorento. But yeah, again, this little flick up here, not the biggest fan of that, but I do like how unapologetically square this car is, because it just is something that is a dedicated SUV, not trying to be anything too stylish, but it does look nice and clean and is really practical because of that. So look, big boxy SUV, the Kia Sorento does that really well. Now at the back, we have our roof spoiler with the integrated wiper. I really appreciate that, and something that other brands that are a little bit more expensive than this can probably take note from. I also like the clean look here at the rear, especially when you get rid of that wiper. And then the only way you're going to know this is a hybrid is a little EV badge here in the license plate on the back and up front, which is something that's mandatory. But then you also have a little eco hybrid badge back here, and it's just nice and subtle for people who don't want to shout to the world that they're driving a hybrid. And then down below, we have these sort of fake exhaust exits meant to sort of suggest exhaust, but the real exhaust is tucked underneath the bottom here, as well as the spare tire. Now, I love the fact that we have a power tailgate back here. It's very useful for parents, so you don't have to hop in and out to get this closed, and it is height adjustable. But as you can see here, a 7-seater is going to chew up into your boot space. So with all the seats up, you're just getting over 100 liters of cargo space, and that's with all your seats up. So it's going to be hard to sort of get everyone's luggage that might be going along with you. So if you're doing a massive car trip and actually taking 7 people, you might need a roof box or a secondary car to carry all of those bags, because yeah, it's not going to fit back here. And then down below, we do have our little boot cover down here as well, which can store nice and low rather than having to be against the seats, making it easy to keep in the car and also put up your 7 seats. And then below the boot floor here in the back with all the seats up, there's just equipment for changing your tires, no more additional storage. And then to fold these seats down is as simple as pulling on these tabs, and they sort of have some Velcro on the back to make sure that they stay in place. And then you get a lot more usable space. Thanks to this car being nice and boxy, like I mentioned before, you have a very nice vertical opening. There's a flat load floor as well. There's a bit of a jump to sort of put heavier items in, but once they're in, they can just be pushed in nice and easily. And then finally, if you want to put these 60-40 split seats down, there are buttons here in the back. So you can go to the left side, and then you can go to the right side. Now, they don't really fold flat like that, so you do have to go around the side and lock them in place sometimes. And And there you go, you have all your usable space. It's just a little under 2,000 litres once you have all the seats folded down. It's still a wildly practical car, even though it's got an extra bit of drivetrain for the hybridization. But compared to its petrol-powered and diesel-powered alternatives, it has a smidge less storage space, but that difference is hardly noticeable. Now, this is the GT line trim of the Sorento, so you get a fully kitted out interior, and there really isn't a feature missing here. Key features include the large glass roof, which can open at the front, which is nice. You've got a heads-up display. You've got twin 10.25-inch displays. You've also got accent lighting with custom colors. You've got leather seats, which are all automatic and easily adjustable with memory settings. You've even got a nice steering wheel. You've got a rotary shift dial, and you have plenty of creature comforts like heated front seats, cooled front seats, and plenty of places to charge as well, including a wireless charging pad. And we also have a telescopic steering wheel. Now, compared to the new Kia Sorento, these screens are slightly smaller, but it doesn't mean they're not usable. I like how they're uniform in their alignment because it makes it easy to sort of glance to the left and right without having to adjust your gaze. And then this Android tablet type layout that every modern Kia is getting is super useful. It's really easy to navigate. It looks great as well. There's a home button up the top and hard buttons on each side. And then for this specific model, you get a little hybrid leaf logo, which you can go and press on that, and that little icon will take you to your energy flow and your fuel economy, because that's what people care about when they're driving a hybrid, which is quite interesting to have as a little quick menu to have a look at. And then through this menu, you can actually change the display here in front of you. You can go between a couple of different dials, or you can have something as gorgeous as this, which is a landscape that actually changes with the time of day. I really like that. And it's very easy to read. There's plenty of bits of information there, so it doesn't feel like you've got a lack of info, but it's not overloaded either. And then using the buttons here on the steering wheel, there is a special menu for the hybrid in the center of the screen, which shows you energy flow, shows you when the battery is being charged, when it's being used, when the engine's on, all that sort of stuff. But then other than that, it's got generic trip information that you can just cycle through using these buttons here to have a look at on the screen. Now, I like the climate controls as well. They are all like capacitives, so for some people they might not like that, but it is still relatively the same as hard buttons. And there's even a button that is a driver-only fan. I really appreciate that, because a lot of people who jump into the car, they go, oh, I don't want the air on me, so you can just hit driver only, so you get all the air, and then your passenger can sort themselves out at a later stage. And then we also have drive modes, not terrain modes. So this is a front-wheel drive car, so it only gets the drive modes. It gets Eco Sport and Smart mode, which switches between the two. Now, anyone riding in the back here will still get leather seats. They're very comfortable. There's a nice flat floor as well, so middle seat passengers will have no issues sitting here. And with my size 11 feet, they fit most of the way in there, so I don't really have to put my feet either side, which is quite nice. I will note that there is a lack of carpets here in this car. I hope it's just because this car didn't come with them fitted, but if it's an option, I think it's a bit of a disappointment for the price this car is asking. Now in the back, you get to make the most of this giant glass roof, but what's good is that if you want to just enjoy the glass roof up front, you can close this shade halfway, and it just means people in the back won't be blinded by the light. So if people need to have a nap back here, they can. And this is a really good place to have a nap as well, because you can put your seat back into a very reclined position, so I feel quite nice. Now look, I have pretty good knee room and decent feet room underneath the seat in front of me, but if I take this left seat over here, I can actually move the seat in front of me using some controls on the side of the seat, which is quite useful if no one's sitting there, or if someone's being a bit stubborn with their space, you can just force them forward using these buttons on the side. And then for places to charge, there are 3 USB ports back here, which is very thoughtful because there will be at some point 3 people sitting here and they may need to charge, so that's good. No one's gonna be fighting for a charging port. And there is a 12-volt socket back here as well. Each seat on the outer side though will be the ones that benefit over the middle seat, because they get a heated seat with 2 modes there, and you also have a cup holder nice and high. And then finally, you do have a window shade here on the side, which just snaps up like that. And finally, we have to get into these back seats here. So there's a button on the side of the middle row, which makes it easy for them to slide forward. And there's a decent size opening for even someone like me to slide on through. I'm 5'11", and that little climb through there isn't all that bad. And if you are sitting in the back seat, you can close the door, and you can even pull the seat back in front of you and bring it back into a position where you feel comfortable. And you even have a button up top so you can adjust your knee room before the person gets in, which is quite useful. In the back here, I have pretty okay knee room, and my feet can slide underneath the seat in front of me, although the person in front of me will be sitting a bit more upright. If they wanted to recline a tiny bit, it would be a bit more difficult for me, but you know, I lose my knee room, but I can at least rest my knees on the back there and feel relatively okay. But you can see how high my knees are compared to my hips, so it does feel like I'm crouching back here. The headrests do come up nicely, and all the headrests in here are nice and spongy, which is great, very comfortable. We do have 2 more USB ports back here, so everyone's covered for charging their devices, which I really appreciate. And then I also have a dedicated AC controls back here, which is quite good. So I can turn off my fan back here, which controls both sides, or I can just amp up the fans here, but I can't control the temperature. That's something you'll have to ask the front occupants to do for you. And then if you can't hear the people in front, or you know, your kids aren't listening, there are microphones and speakers back here for passenger talk, so you as the driver up front can yell through the intercom and it will come up through the back, so they can hear you nice and clear without you having to turn around, distract yourself to shout at whoever's getting in trouble back here. So that is a very useful feature that I really appreciate in a car like this. So this is a very good family car from a cabin perspective, and also the exterior features, which makes it really easy to live with. But is it good to drive? So let's find out. So if you like the idea of an EV, then the Kia Sorento Hybrid does a good job of doing a silent startup, which is really nice and just relaxing to hop into. Now, it's as simple as just driving a normal car. There's nothing you have to do to drive this as a hybrid any different than you would if you had a petrol or diesel powered car. So just put it into drive and away you go. Now, occasionally the petrol motor will kick in, but here we're nice and silent. And it does create a sound on the outside, and when you're reversing, you'll be able to hear it when I go into reverse here. And when I go into reverse, that noise, yeah, that you can hear that from the outside too. It's a bit of a weird thing to have. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I know why we have to have it, because you need people to hear that your car is moving and not just rolling away silently, but it's there nonetheless. But it gives you a reassuring noise that you know this is on. And then once you get going, the petrol motor, there it is, kicks in. Now look, most of the time that kicks in nice and smooth, but I found it to be a little jarring at times when you're at really low speeds and then the petrol engine just kicks in, and for some reason it comes in at quite a high rev. I'm not too sure why that is. It just sounds like you're grinding the gutter a little bit with that petrol motor if you're parking and it turns on. It just becomes a bit concerning. But then once it's on, don't really notice it. So it's a 1.6 litre turbocharged 4-cylinder paired to a electric motor and battery setup. And so you have your battery gauge on the right hand side of your driver's cluster, and then your fuel on the left. Now I started with around 950 kilometers of estimated range in this car, and I've gone down to 878 while driving. And that's just driving around my local area. So I've achieved a average fuel consumption figure of around 8.4 litres per 100 Ks, and that includes some highway driving. So look, the hybrid isn't going to be the saving grace to make sure you use zero petrol, but it is going to be something that will reduce your petrol consumption. So if you just had the 1.6 litre in here, for example, or you chose the thirstier V6 option that you can get in this car, you'd be using a lot more petrol than what this car is using now. Now I do like how this car tells you when it's in EV mode. It's just a little green EV symbol that pops up in the driver's cluster, but then once you get going, it's just like a normal car. This is a front-wheel drive SUV, so an all-wheel drive version will be coming out a little bit later, but right now this is the only drivetrain option we have, and I'm not the biggest fan of it, because just in low grip settings like this, it can slip a little bit, because that instant torque from that electric motor combined with the turbocharged motor can create a bit of slippage. So if I go through here, for example, and then stomp it, yeah, you can hear it sort of shudder trying to get traction up front as it claws at the tarmac, and it's just something that's a little bit annoying, and I think an all-wheel drive setup would suit this car just a bit better. Now as we're driving along, it is a little bumpy on some tarmac, so I can feel that this car is a little bit heavier than its diesel and petrol counterparts, but it's really quite a comfortable ride, and that's thanks to Kia not putting any bigger wheels than their 19s on this, because at least we have a bit more meat on the sidewall to soak up a few more of those bumps. Now I can see here how the energy flow is happening in the car. The engine right now, because we're going on uphill, is charging the battery and going through the electric motor as well, so that's quite good. And look, this is all you have to do. It's a very easy car to drive. The Kia Sorento is an excellent car to drive regardless. I do like its seating position. I like the visibility. I like the technology in here. So you have nice safety tech. So if we go to indicate, you've got blind spot monitoring cameras, which are quite good. They pop up. You've got a 360-degree parking camera. You have radar cruise with also active lane keep assist, and that just makes it going on long trips on this just so easy and relaxing, especially in a cabin like this. The seat's been awesomely comfortable. I haven't got a sore back by any means, and I look forward to actually driving this every time I'm in it. And yeah, overall this is a very good family car option regardless of which drivetrain you go for. But if you're wondering how the hybrid actually improves the driving experience here, I do just like that extra bit of quietness you get at low speeds, and I also like how reluctant the petrol engine is to rev. It's not reluctant to give you power, so if we go put a foot down, you know, you do start to hustle a little bit, but then there is a tiny bit of hang that happens when you do stomp on it like that. Now we do have a sport mode here, so we can go into sport mode, and essentially what that does is just wakens up that petrol motor just a bit more. And look, it's not all that exciting to drive, to be honest. It is still a large 7-seat SUV, and you can change your gears here on the actual steering wheel, and it's sort of rev locked, so we can't go into first for some reason. We're locked in second. Okay, that's interesting. So we have to start in second even. What do we go all the way to a full stop? Okay, we have to get really low down to get into first. All right, and then it will change for you. And then let's go through a corner through here. So no, this isn't a substitute Porsche 918 or Honda NSX. This is very much a family SUV, even if you do use the paddle shifters. It is still a little bit fun to use them, which is all right, but yeah, I would just recommend keeping this car in smart mode or eco mode to make the most of this. The extra electric power in here as well helps pull this car up hills compared to a non-turbocharged 4-cylinder alternative, something that some other SUV manufacturers offer. I like that this car feels strong, and so it feels like I can load this car up and not be too worried about how this car performs going up steep hills like this. But yeah, overall it just cruises nicely. And it coasts well as well. So you just go to tap the brake to come off that, and the car will just coast along. And it sort of has a good amount of movement as you go through higher speeds. It doesn't really slow down as if you're like coming off the accelerator on some electric cars. It doesn't really have like a full-on regen. It has a somewhat of a regen, similar to what the original Toyota Prius had. It just doesn't decelerate the car all that much, but you can see it working away in the cluster or in the infotainment here as the battery gets charged up when you're just rolling along. And I do like how this battery charges up quite rapidly, so you don't have to drive that long to get it to a half charge or even a 3/4 charge. I haven't really seen it go to a full charge all that often. I don't really think that's something that's going to be a common occurrence when you're driving this car. The highest I've seen it go is about 3/4 and a bit, so that's just something to note. But yeah, braking in this car with the extra weight, we'll do an emergency stop in 3, 2, 1. Yep, pulls up all right. This is an empty car, mind you, but you know the brakes do inspire a good amount of confidence, and then you can hear that 4-cylinder whirring away as we get up to speed, and then as we come off the accelerator, it just relaxes down a little bit. This does feel like a better driving experience than just a dedicated petrol SUV, and then, you know, a little quieter than the diesel as well, which I really appreciate. Now you're probably wondering, should you buy one of these after I've driven it and shown you the features? Well, here's my take. I think this is a good middle ground between a dedicated fossil fuel powered vehicle and a plug-in hybrid or EV alternative. Many buyers here in Australia don't really want to spend more time at the pumps, especially with fuel prices fluctuating as much as they are now. So this is what this car does well, is that it reduces the amount of times you have to actually visit a petrol station. Additionally, those who are a little bit cautious about stepping into something like a plug-in hybrid or a dedicated EV, they will like this because this car doesn't have to be plugged in for you to make the most of the battery and electric drivetrain. And so to have a car that reduces your fuel consumption and makes that tank of petrol last a little bit longer is very appealing for a lot of buyers. But here are some of the downsides. You can't actually run off the battery in a dedicated EV mode at your choosing. The car will decide for you when it wants to engage the petrol motor, which is a little bit annoying because at low speeds, that petrol engine comes on a little bit harsh and it can sound like you're scraping a gutter if you're parking, and it's just not all that comfortable when it does come on. But then once you're up to speed, it sort of dissipates and becomes a non-issue. Another thing is that high-pitched whining in the interior. Someone like myself and my age, I can definitely hear this, and it's really annoying, and for some other people, they might hear it as well. But then for other drivers, they may not notice it. But I just think it's one of those things that has to be sorted out because I feel like it's emanating from the electric drivetrain in this car, and it's just something that's very annoying to live with. So that's something I wish Kia might just take a look at. But then once you're up to speed, it's not really an issue. It's just when you're going at low speeds or you're parking. Now, I think the Kia Sorento Hybrid is a very good option to go check out if you're looking for a 7-seater with a bit of spark to it. So it's definitely worth checking out if you've been wanting a car that sits in between a dedicated EV and you want to move out of just relying on pure diesel or petrol powered alternatives. Now, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know what you think down in the comments down below, or if you have any other cars you want us to check out, let us know down there as well. Hit subscribe because it's the best way to show your support for the channel. If you like this review, like it. If you didn't like it, dislike it, and I'll see you in the next one.